So anyway, like I said, we're burying the lead here. Triple G is here as our Lord and Savior. No, I'm sorry. The GM and coach. He's going to be in charge of everything.
Everything. Director of football and head coach, as
director of football.
Technically stated.
So, in other
He's
words,
got big director energy.
So, in other words, as soon as the player signs the dotted line, he's going to tell him, okay, welcome to Chicago. Now go run 10 laps. You want to make the starting 11? Go run 10 laps.
I mean,
prove yourself.
He's going to be the negotiator, the contract witness, signatory, whatever it's called.
Well, that's what he's got Frank for, because as Toke mentioned on chat, we were talking. I said, well, what happened to Frank? Because the club didn't really say anything about Frank. It didn't say it let Frank go. It didn't say thank you, Frank.
No, they made him assistant to the football director, the director of
Wasn't
football.
it like vice president or something? I don't even know.
Vice president of football. So
he's the one that's going to pass the papers to Triple G, and Triple G is going to negotiate.
Well, I mean, I'd rather have Klopas involved in this club than someone like Georg Heitz or Nelson Rodriguez.
Well, here's the thing.
I think that's a lost. Here's the thing. We talk a lot of shit about Frank Klopas around here. Let's not get it twisted. But I do think one great thing that he has that people don't realize is actually important. He knows the nuts and bolts of things. He knows how to legally get a contract across the line. He knows how to schedule a practice. You know what I mean? Now these things will work better for Europeans first time in MLS than it will for Triple G. But again, he can lean on Frank to do some things.
Well, here's the thing. Frank can do all the boring stuff. He can, get the paperwork. But the thing is, I don't think you'll have a better negotiator than Triple G. This man has I'm just saying, this man has a relationship with a lot of U.S. players. After all, this man was national team head coach, and from all the rumors and everything we've heard, the U.S. men's players, they loved him, because he was nice to them. I don't know. But,
that's part of a national team coach's job, is getting these guys moves. They help facilitate that sometimes.
Yeah. So what's not to say that, he cannot be used to be one, to bring someone, from abroad over here. Some players like to play under certain coaches. Just saying.
James, what do you think of Mr. Triple G? Are you excited? There's smiles all around. I will say that. I've noticed.
I'm super excited. I wish the Chicago Fire had a coach like Triple G during the days of Bastian Schweinsteiger, 2017, 2018, because had they had a coach of the ilk of Triple G instead of a coach that was going through soccer college, essentially.
Not to mention the soups.
Let alone the soup kitchens, which, great community work there. But what this guy brings to the club is sensibility, maturity, experience. This is an experienced hand. Was handed the coach of Columbus in 2013. Was handed the U.S. men's national team coach 5 years later in 2018. Only led us to a pretty solid World Cup appearance with the likes of fighting with Wales, fighting with England.
I think out of all of us, I was the most bullish on the World Cup. I will say that.
Well, that said, he went out there and he took the American team and he did his darndest. He did his best. I don't know if he was the best man for the job.
No.
At U.S. men's national team.
Definitely not the second time around.
The second time around was definitely a mistake, but it wasn't that he was over. Well, at a certain point, he did get overmatched, and his ideas just weren't conducive to the national team, and that's what gets me excited about him coming back to the club world, because his ideas didn't translate on the next stage as well as they really anticipated. They thought that his complex tactical activities would translate with these higher technically advanced players, but that wasn't the case, because what you need in those types of moments is more repetition, more time with the boys, rather than the 35 games he got, the 50 games he got over his 4 or 5 year tenure. He's going to have 50 games in 1 year with the Chicago Fire with all the different tournaments. So he's going to have a lot more time to install his ideas, get the boy, and then the boys, instead of getting coming in and just getting thrown into the mix, they're going to be imbibed in it, and they're only going to be leaving it if they're getting call-ups.
I will say this. I started out the day very negative about this move, and I have softened my stance on that. Part of that is I actually did not think he was at Columbus for 5 years. I actually thought it was only like a 2.5-year stint. So I will respect his Columbus stint a lot more than I have been, or at least I did earlier today.
Keep in mind, he was the one that kind of set the foundation to what the Columbus Crew is now. Because I
felt like he was getting too much credit for that, but I think you might be right. I think you are right. He set the groundwork for that.
That's not to say Nancy is not a fantastic coach to be able to do what he's doing.
Nancy is like gonna hold, he's taking his club to the next level. But the fact that Gregg Berhalter led the foundation, and actually, that led on, towards Columbus winning MLS Cups and going to CONCACAF Champions League and all that stuff. And honestly, it is a good situation for the Fire now, because you need someone that's going to lay out a foundation. You need someone that's going to rebuild this club team, because this club team has gone through so much mismanagement, and from bloated contracts to head scratchers of player signings, that you need someone that's going to clean house and set a precedence for the future. And I think Gregg Berhalter has that.
Do you think he has the capability to do that as both roles?
Yes.
Because one thing I don't like about the both roles thing is that I feel like once it gets time, like the first year, everything's golden. Everybody's so happy because he wants you. But there comes a time when the coach is not only benching you, but he's benching you because he's also shopping you, or he's also he's cutting you. Like, I feel like it creates too much bad blood sometimes.
For me, this is a good problem to have. This is a good problem. Yeah, this is a good problem to have, because not only do we have a head coach, offensive coordinator, defensive coordinator, we have the GM all wrapped into one. However, as Taylor Twellman pointed out in a tweet I sent you guys, I'll pull it up here in a second. But Taylor said that in today's game, it might not work to have a man with so many hats. However, for me,
Peter Vermees is doing just fine, isn't he?
He's doing miserably, but here's the quote itself. Let me pull this up for the chat, for everybody watching. Comment after this. Comment how you guys think about this Gregg Berhalter move to Chicago Fire. We want to hear from you guys in the comments. I
want to know.
But oh man, I lost my train of thought.
No, Taylor Twellman.
Chicago. Okay, so Taylor Twellman. So it's about him being potentially overmatched now, and I'm seeing the good side of this, which is if there ever does come a time where he feels like he can't do both, I trust this guy. I trust this guy to be able to make that call, that he's going to be able to be like, you know what? I'm going to bring in my heir. I'm going to take over GM duties. I'll be the technical director. I'm going to bring in my heir. In comes, you name it, guy from LAFC.
Thornton.
Torrington,
for coach, Ante Razov.
Cherundolo.
Or Cherundolo, Razov. He brings in some of his guys to take over for his head coaching. He's still the steward of the plan. He's got an idea. He's got an identity for what the Chicago Fire want to play. And I want this man installing that. I want to give this guy time. I need to give this guy more than 2 years, because he had 5 years in Columbus, and look what has happened.
Not only that, we have been arguing about this for the past couple of years. We have said this team needs to be gutted.
And
there needs to be what I'm saying is this. Every year it almost seems we always say, this team needs to be gutted. But all it does, the Fire have done is put band-aids and maybe sell one player, and that's it. Like, we have
so many contract guys out of contract. Plus, we have 2 buyouts. We'll get rid of Jimenez and Navarro. Like, dude,
Jimenez might fit into his plan.
Don't
even say that.
Just stop. We're going to get to another one.
I think if Triple G keeps Jimenez, Like Jimenez better be like playing for fire too.
It better be like
Jimenez could be
better
serviceable in Triple G's tactical plans.
Okay,
here's the
I'm
thing:
not...
Triple G, he can get
If it's a
more out of
contract,
players than any coach we've had here in the. We did not have a coach that got more out of players. We finally have a coach that can get more out of players, albeit he's got his guys. Now that might be punishing in a U.S. men's national team setup, but in a club setup, that punishment means that guy gets transferred. We got more funds to bring in somebody who he does like.
The problem is that we've seen enough of Jimenez that we know that whatever Triple G tells him, it's not gonna work.
It's gonna go in one ear and out the other.
Yeah.
If he doesn't, guess what? We got a guy with the brass cojones to be able to be like, all right, you're gone. Like this guy,
honestly,
this guy is colder than the three witches of Greece, of ancient Greece, who are that cut the wires of your life. You know what I'm talking about?
So who is this guy we're talking about here? Now I'm kind of curious. You're hyping this guy up.
He's hyping up Triple G.
All right, so some guys will say Triple G's soft, but Triple G is soft in the right setting when he's protected. When he's overprotected, this guy
he does protect his players.
But Triple G also has the ability to not making the joke.
So hold on, we brought this up, and you brought up Jimenez, and I just want to say this. That brings us perfectly to this conversation. Because I'm a little scared. Does Kuipers fit in his system? Like, who on the current roster?
So he does typically like. That's a good question because Kuipers is the more of a Lewandowski light than a Giassi Zardes, right? And Giassi Zardes excelled in his role for Gregg Berhalter, but that's because Greg was working with what he has available. We have a guy who not only can be dealt a hand in poker, and he can be dealt straight through the shittiest hand, but 7 times out of 10, this guy can come up with could beat anybody at the table with that shitty hand. 7 times out of 10. I'm not saying he's perfect. I'm just saying, like, this guy thinks deeply about soccer. He thinks about how to expose space. He thinks about how to get the other team into chaos to be able to take advantage of that. Now, there's parts of him that I wonder that are close.
What's his preferred formation?
Well,
I'm just kind of curious.
Well, that's a great question. Let me bring the man himself.